Welcome, everybody. The base is dropped on a roadshow edition of SDH, live from Orlando, Florida. Ahead of tonight's match, Orlando City and Atlanta United. Rivalry, capital R, lowercase r, in air quotes, whatever you want to call it. It's got a little extra to it, and I think this one might be one of the more interesting times that these teams meet, with a lot on the line on both sides. Jason Longshore, Mike Conti here with you today. We'll be taking your questions on Twitter. Tweet at us at SoccerDownHere, at MikeConti929, at Longshoe. Let us know what you're thinking ahead of the match. Mike, I feel like this one really could be a special night tonight in the series. Let's call it a series for now. Because Orlando's better than they've ever been. They've got more on the line at this point in the year than they've ever had. They're also looking for some short-term revenge after the Open Cup semifinal loss, and I think they have the pieces that can make it more difficult for Atlanta than they've ever been able to.
Yeah, honestly, I think if Orlando is ever going to do this and finally break this winless skid against Atlanta United, their best chance might be tonight. Their best chance since May of last year, let's put it that way, because remember, they came into that match... I think, ironically, it was Mother's Day. And it was Mother's Day.
Yes.
And they came into that match boiling hot. They had won like 5 or 6 in a row. Atlanta United was in good form, too. Atlanta United went in there and kind of slammed the door on them.
Jared had a really good point about that, though, when we talked about it last year, was Orlando had won 6 in a row, but they had to fight back, and I think every one of them.
They did. That's true.
They were winning, but it wasn't as dominant as it looked. And,
no doubt.
And it looked like a team, when we saw them in that match, that maybe didn't have that self-belief that I think they've got more of now.
And they should.
Yeah.
And you know, they're coming off a really weird match on Saturday where I have to wonder if they feel good about it or if they feel like they blew it. You know, they get a penalty for Nani relatively early in that match. They've got a 1-0 lead the whole way up in Minnesota, and then the Loons get a late thunderclap and they equalize, and that's how it ends. Getting a road point in Minnesota, that's a great point. Really good point for Orlando, but yet they felt like they should have gotten 3. And I'm wondering, you know, now that they've had a week to think about it, if that still kind of sticks in their craw a little bit or it gives them confidence. I think Orlando would be justifiably confident coming into this match tonight. Pereira is a new element, and I'll be curious to see if he starts. I'll be curious to see how much he can give them tonight. He gave them 45 in Minnesota. He's still assimilating, but you have to think now 2 weeks with the club. He should be ready to go. The training wheels should probably come off. You know, we were talking about this at the airport this morning. I really feel like if Orlando had played Nani on, again, Mother's Day, ironically, at the Benz this year, they probably would have gotten a point out of that match.
Could have.
Atlanta United really was challenged in that match. And they got the win, and they got a beautiful goal from Pitti, and they got the win. But I just have a gut feeling that if Orlando's ever going to break this winless streak, their best chance is tonight. And what's interesting about that is, Jason, if for some reason it does happen, Atlanta United fans will probably only dwell on it for about 24 to 48 hours because you're going into an Open Cup final on Tuesday. So, you know, I don't want to set anyone up to expect disappointment tonight, but I'm just telling you, if Orlando finally finds a way to break through, A, it's not the end of the world for Atlanta United. B, by Monday, we probably wouldn't be talking about it anymore because we'd be looking ahead to Open Cup.
That's true. It's an interesting spot because Orlando comes in 4 straight unbeaten, 2 wins at home, 2 draws on the road. And I'm with you. I think the draw in Minnesota is a good one for them. The way it played out, they might have some ill feelings towards it, but it's a good point in and of itself. And then the draw in Toronto was a good point for them as well.
No doubt, yeah.
And then 2 wins here at home. They're better defensively than they've ever been. That's maybe been the biggest upgrade this year.
Well, and as I'm outlining this point, Fourcard Ahmed is writing basically the exact same thing. So let's get to it now. He says, I just have a feeling Orlando is due for a win tonight.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that too. And he says, I'm generally not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. I have a feeling we'll see Orlando in the playoffs this year. We finish second, they finish seventh. I think that's very possible.
That's very possible.
And he says, I'd rather get the Orlando loss out of the way now. Am I crazy? No, Ahmed, I don't think you're crazy. And I think that is a very legitimate possibility, that Atlanta United and Orlando could find themselves meeting in the postseason. That would be a matchup that would make me very, very nervous, to be honest with you. I mean, it's certainly winnable. It would be at home. I mean, there are a lot of advantages that Atlanta United would have in a knockout game against Orlando. But you inject the emotion of the rivalry into it, and that's kind of an equalizer. The reason why I think, or if there's ever going to be a time for Orlando to do it, it's tonight. It's because they're so close to the playoffs, they can taste it. You know, in May of last year, when they were on that 6-match winning streak, that was so early in the season, no one was thinking about playoffs. You're down to 8 weeks left in the season now. The carrot is right in front of this team. James O'Connor's holding it in front of them. It's right there for them. And they've gotten a couple big road results lately, like you've talked about, Jason, especially the one in Toronto, where they've put themselves in position to do it. Look, it's not going to be the end of the world if this does not go Atlanta United's way tonight. Quite frankly, I think you're playing with house money a little bit because you got the win in Portland. You got 3 points there, not 1 point. So you're playing with house money. Yes, there are implications for getting top seed in the East if you start dropping points anywhere, but it's not going to be the end of the world if you can't get this done tonight.
No, it's not. The emotion does play into this, and that's why I've argued from day one that it is a rivalry. I mean, it cracks me up when you see people say that this isn't a rivalry, but LAFC, the Galaxy, is a great rivalry, and you're kind of in the same situation, subtract a year. It happens. Like, when you have a game that we're talking about emotion, and we're talking about are they due, and we're talking about let's get things out of the way now, that's because it's a little different than your run-of-the-mill match.
Well, and don't you also believe that it is okay to have more than one rival?
I'm a Georgia football fan. Yes, of course it's okay.
I think that's what a lot of, quite frankly, Atlanta supporters are kind of hung up on right now. That, well, you can only have one rival, and because Orlando's never beaten us, it can't be Orlando. I don't agree with that. We'll even take it to the NFL. You know, the Falcons, they're rivals with the Saints. That's number one, but they have very robust rivalries with Tampa and with Carolina, and quite frankly, with San Francisco and the Rams dating back to when they were in the same division. In my opinion, Atlanta United's got a bunch of rivals.
Yep.
New York Red Bulls. New York City, Atlanta, I think is one of the most underappreciated, underrated rivalries in this league, and I said that on Extra Time Radio yesterday. D.C., Minnesota, quite frankly, I think could be listed as an intra-conference rivalry, or interconference rivalry, and then Orlando. I don't think it matters what the head-to-head record is in this series because when we go to the stadium tonight, Jason, we feel something. Mm-hmm. You know, you feel something walking into Exploria Stadium that, quite frankly, you don't feel when you walk into Gillette Stadium or when you walk into Talon Energy Park in Philly or when you walk into Portland even. It feels different, and these players, there's animosity.
Yeah.
They want to beat each other. I mean, Joseph is not just trolling for the fun of it. I mean, there's something real behind it. So,
that's a good thing. I don't know why we're fighting
that. Why is that a bad thing? But why is it bad to have more than one rival?
It's silly. For me, I mean, we've been talking about it all day about different things. When you get into how to sell the league and grow the league, when you have emotion, and there's obviously emotion here, why downplay it? Why try to say, well, no, it's not that big, it's not this. Stop. Like, you need to grab onto these things and blow it up to the hill.
Right.
Like, yes, this is a game that is not your run-of-the-mill random match on a Friday. That's why you have it on national TV. That's why you have a lot of Atlanta United fans who will be in the stadium tonight. That's why you have this as part of rivalry week. It does factor into it, and it has delivered entertaining matches pretty much every time.
Well, even when they appeared to be mismatches, like last August here, really, it feels like a year ago tonight, even though I know it wasn't, but it was a Friday night in late August as part of Rivalry Week. It feels like it was a year ago tonight when Joseph broke the record. Atlanta United was surging towards potentially the Supporters' Shield. They did not get it, but they were first in the East. They were first in the Shield table, and Orlando was cratering. And if Brad doesn't make a huge save in the 80th minute, that's a draw.
Yeah.
So absolutely they've produced compelling matches. The 1-0 match at the Benz this year was a great match. Even the U.S. Open Cup win 2 weeks ago, yes, it was 2-0. And yes, Atlanta United controlled, but Orlando had chances.
Yeah, they did.
They didn't do well with their chances, but they had chances. So we have a lot of questions.
Okay, cool.
And I think we should probably get to some of them right now. So
Let's do it.
Shiva and also Jorge B, they kind of have almost the exact same question. Shiva says she has a feeling Gressel and Nagby will be rested tonight. Jorge says, is this the night to give Gressel the night off and maybe start Tito? He also wants to know if there's any news on Franco and Rometty. So let's start with Shiva. If it's Gressel and Nagby out tonight, who would slot in for them? I think the fact that Rometty could potentially not be available makes it less likely that Nagby would sit tonight.
Yeah, it'd be a little different. I mean, I feel like you could go with a combination of Lorenowitz, Heinemann a little more defensive than we've seen him here so far, but those two with Barco in front, I could see that. I could see potentially Rometty.
You could also get Super Bowl and maybe throw Luis Fernando right into the fire.
On the right side, yeah. That's where I think if this is the game that we see Gressel not start, I think it's Luis Fernando who steps into that.
Yeah.
That's, other than him, it would be Escobar, and Escobar is unlikely to be factoring in today. I have not heard anything official, but he didn't train on Wednesday. I don't remember a time that somebody didn't train on Wednesday and played on Friday.
Yeah, I think it's more like, and again,
Rometty's possible because he trained.
Yeah, and we're operating under the theory that Gressel would not play, and we know nothing. We know nothing that would indicate that would be so. I understand the premise of Shiva's question because Gressel's put in a lot of work, and I get it.
If you're thinking about Tuesday, and we saw Minnesota last night, really think about Tuesday.
Absolutely.
They had injury issues, too, on top of it, so they had to balance it a little bit more.
But I think it's more likely, rather than try to move Miram to the right and play Pereira on the left, I think it would be more likely that Luis Fernando would go in there right away. And I don't think the timing is a coincidence that they made that signing on Wednesday, that they made that move. He's been training with the first team. He's been around the first team. That would be a shock. I know that would get a lot of people's attention if that ended up happening. You're not going to be dropping Pitti back to right wing back.
No,
there's no way you do that.
There's nobody else who could play.
No, it would have to be Luis Fernando. So that's a possibility.
Mo Adams would be the other one, and we haven't seen him on the right.
But I would guess he'd be more inclined to play on the left. And
could go either way. I think Luis Fernando's the easier move if you're going to do it.
Yeah. And again, I mean, there might be a certain degree of playing with house money that might come into play with the selection tonight. I mean, Frank's not going to completely over-rotate, but I hate to say it, Tuesday's more important than tonight. You want to win every league match, and you're in a race for the top seed in the East, but let's call it for what it is. Tuesday is more important than tonight. That brings us to the question that Nathan Pugh had. Minnesota looked like they rested a few guys last night. He thought it was a boring match. Does DeBoer rotate at all tonight with an eye on Tuesday? He says a Friday-Tuesday turnaround is enough to go all out in both. It's very light travel. So you're not in a really bad spot as far as being able to turn around and get ready for Tuesday. I do agree with that part of it.
Yeah, Minnesota had it a little difficult because they had some injuries they had to deal with first. They also had to play in Kansas City on Thursday, travel back to Minnesota probably today, Saturday train, Sunday maybe come on down on Sunday, if not train Monday and come down after training. Not sure what their schedule is going to look like. But that extra day of travel combined with all the injuries, I think made it comfortable for Adrian Heath to rest some guys, and he still almost got a result. Didn't happen for him. They gave up a goal late.
And
but
by the
still.
way, SKC has been playing better. I mean, let's
Better.
not call that an awful result
No,
for
not at
Minnesota
all.
last
Not
night.
at all.
I don't think they played poorly.
Not at all. It's okay. They almost got away with resting a bunch of guys. Does Frank rest a bunch of guys today? I don't think he necessarily has to.
And he hasn't all year.
No.
And he's
They
had
go against
opportunities.
I think you can rotate without resting a bunch of guys. And we've talked about Gressel and the possibilities there. Nagby, there's possibilities there if you want to go with Mo Adams, if you want to play Heineman in that role. We'll see about Remedi if he's available, what that looks like. You can get away with resting both of those players and go with everyone else that played on Sunday, and you're okay.
Yeah.
That's incorporating two guys, and that you can do. You can make that work. You have Dion Pereira. If Dion Pereira factors in at some point tonight in a role, it wouldn't surprise me a bit. You want to play Justin Merrim, obviously, unless he needs a little bit of time or needs to come off the bench tonight. That's a possibility. Same with Barco Pitti. If they're ready to go, they're ready to go. They're going to play. I think you've got the pieces to be able to go with a mostly same lineup from Sunday with a couple of exceptions.
Yeah, now let's talk about conditions because that could come into the decision
bit,
as well.
yeah.
It's going to be 81 degrees, real feel 87 at kickoff time. It's
Too bad?
It's soupy, but it's not like what we saw in Colorado last year.
Yeah.
Like there won't be hydration breaks or anything
No.
like that tonight. It's not quite that bad.
It's manageable.
Let's workshop this. I would say back three if you stay in the 3-5-2. Leandro and Miles for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if Michael Parker's found his way into the 11 tonight. It's been a long time.
It's either one. It's either Pogba or Parker. Either one's fine.
Yeah.
You haven't seen Parky in a minute, so...
And it could be Pogba for 60 and then Parker. I mean, Pogba's put in a lot of work, too.
Yeah.
Your midfield, I think it's...
See,
Justin on, I think it's Justin on the
wing
left.
backs, yeah.
Justin
Merrim
on the left, and Julian on the right. I think Julian does play tonight with Heineman, Nagby, and Barco, and Joseph and Pitti. I mean, I think you're going. I know that's full strength.
Heineman Nagby would be a pairing that we haven't seen without Remedi.
True.
That would be interesting. I think Heineman can play that. We haven't seen him do it. When he's been in the central midfield, he's been more advanced. He's played as a box-to-box. He's even played as a six-some. So I think he could do that. I just don't know how much he's worked at that in this system. You have Jeff Lorenowitz, you have Mo Adams as possibilities there as well, and maybe Remedi. And that's going to be the question. The front three is the front three. I think Barco, Pitti, and Joseph, everybody's ready to go. I could see Luis Fernando for Gressel if you want to give him time because he's the one who's played so much that maybe you do want to have him fully sharp for Tuesday. That's really... I haven't noticed Nagby dragging. Gressel has been dragging at the end of matches because he's put in a ton of work. If you don't do that, then you're going to be giving him a little more instruction to, pick your spots on runs. Hang back a little bit more if you need to. Ease into the game. Don't run yourself into the ground early. He's going to have to play it a little bit different to manage his minutes.
All right, JB asking about the hiring of Jonathan Spector, and if you missed that this morning, Spector, I guess his title is Director of International Player Recruitment or something along those lines. He says, so it seems we're adding coaches seemingly every other day. Did we lose people or fire people?
Neither. And it's not a coach. It's not going to be a coach role. That's a front office role.
And there were some academy coach hirings, but those were vacant spots, as far as I know.
There's more turnover in the academy where if you're for example, Stephen Glass was a U17 coach and he moved up to USL Championship. If you're at a lower age group, you might move up either in this club or at another club. That's common. That happens. First team, you're not seeing that. So Spector's role is going to be, it sounds like, working hand-in-hand with Carlos on the technical director, player recruitment side, specifically with international players. And Spector's experience playing abroad will help him in that. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer when you can add somebody who's been through that into the mix. And this is something that I think Atlanta United's done better than anybody else in the league, with the exception of maybe LAFC. is going out and getting players that are able to contribute pretty quickly and players that the transition is more comfortable. It comes from Carlos and Jonathan now being former players.
Yeah. And they have a relationship with each other, too. It sounds like something that might actually help get a little bit off Darren's plate, where Spector can kind of get the ball rolling with some international players. So, no, it's not as though he's replacing anyone. It's a new title. I guess budgetarily, I don't know how they're making it work. I really don't care. But it's not like anyone's losing their job or any vacancies have been created.
Now that you think about it, Paul McDonough did leave. This is not replacing Paul McDonough. This is maybe rearranging roles a little bit, and it makes sense.
Katie Weaver, I fell asleep, so I didn't see much of last night. What do we learn about Minnesota and what their approach may be on Tuesday?
I don't think we learned much from last night because of the lineup that they fielded. For me, when you look at Minnesota, the question is going to be, does Adrian Heath come in and play very defensively as we've seen him do? Or does he open it up and go for it? They have the pieces to go for it. They have the talent to go for it. Do they? I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know how Adrian Heath is going to approach it. I think the health is going to be an issue for his group. Angelo Rodriguez, who I think Mason Toy should be starting anyway, but Angelo Rodriguez and his injury, Darwin Quintero came off the bench, I believe, last night. He didn't start. You've got Quintero, you've got Toy, you've got Ibarra. You've got a lot of talent going forward, and you also have it backed up. Osvaldo Alonso is another injury issue. Icapara played last night. They're better. They're kind of like Orlando in a lot of ways. They're better defensively than they've ever been. But Minnesota has the pieces going forward that scare you a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good match.
It should be.
When they came in May, Adrian Heath wanted to play. And we thought maybe they would be a little more of the mindset to put a lot of guys behind the ball and kind of sit back and absorb pressure. And they went out and they wanted to play. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I know you're convinced it wasn't in, but if there was goal line technology, it might have been a completely different outcome because they appeared to have something that could have potentially been a goal late in that match. And then remember, I mean, the scoreline looked a little bit distorted because Joseph, they had that, who was it? Was it Icapara who had the howler, who played the ball back to Joseph thinking there was someone behind him?
Yeah.
So that scoreline was misleading. If we see the same caliber of Minnesota on Tuesday night as we saw at the Benz in May, it's going to be a really thrilling match. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's as big of a match as it is for Atlanta United. Minnesota doesn't have a trophy yet, nor do they have a playoff appearance. So this by far is the biggest match in their club history.
Easily.
And they have gone all in for it. I have no doubt that Atlanta United goes all in for it as well on Tuesday, even with that very critical match looming the following Saturday in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think you have to. It's cup final. It's a chance for CONCACAF Champions League to be sealed up. I think it will end up being a good crowd. I know there's been some issues with ticket sales and the whole process. And keep in mind, that's a U.S. soccer event, and they've handled the ticketing process and maybe mishandled might be the best way to put it. And it's not the first time with a cup final. It's happened in other locations too. So there are tickets available. If you're looking to get into that game, it should deliver on the spectacle. It
Absolutely.
should deliver on your time out on a Tuesday night, and it should be another great opportunity for Atlanta United. I'm looking forward to whatever we're going to do with it. We're going to do something. We'll be talking about the game somewhere, somehow, in some way. We don't know exactly yet. We're figuring all that out, but I can't wait for it.
Yeah, and it's a special trophy. It's a very historic trophy. It would look great in the case. We'll see. So that's all for the questions we have right now. If you want to send any more in, please do before we say goodbye. Let's redirect now to tonight. Again, like we said at the very beginning, this feels like if Orlando's ever going to do it, this might be their best shot tonight. And look, there's going to be a day in the history of Orlando City where they're going to beat Atlanta United. They will beat Atlanta United long before their time in the league is over. So let's get used to that right now. You're not going to be able to be undefeated against them forever. To me, I think this comes down to how fresh is the midfield going to be? 2.5 weeks ago here in Orlando, the midfield bossed the game. Remedi was vital, and that's the bummer part if he can't play tonight. I thought Eric Remedi was man of the match 2.5 weeks ago, and without him tonight, is this midfield going to be able to control the match in the same way that they did 2.5 weeks ago? To me, that's what it's going to come down to, because Orlando's going to have chances. Atlanta is going to have chances. Who wins in the midfield?
Well, remember that game and how it played out. You had Pity Martinez and Ezequiel Barco up top without Joseph.
Right.
It took a little bit of time to figure out the different combinations and different patterns, and once they did get the opening goal. I think that's why Remedi had to step up more and be more involved, pushing in, as instead of Joseph leading the line from the front. In a lot of ways, it was Remedi leading the attack from behind Barco and Pity. How that works with Joseph in the mix, I think if you don't have Remedi, you're able to mitigate it a little bit more with the way things work. Ezequiel Barco has had some really good matches since coming back from injury. The last couple have been so-so. He hasn't had quite as much of an impact. I think he really wants to get going again. I think his call-up to the Argentine U23s could really spark him in that. I'm looking for a big game out of him tonight. Orlando with injuries at both outside back positions with Juan and Joao Moutinho. Both of them injured, reserves in those roles, and we'll see how they fill them. We've seen center backs play outside for Orlando lately. We've seen second-tier outside backs play. They're not going to be able to push forward as much. That's going to allow Gressel or Luis Fernando or Merrim or Pereira on the other side to really go at Orlando more, because they're not going to be as much of a threat out wide.
Yeah, Chris Mueller banged up as well. I mean, Orlando is kind of stuck in it a little bit right now.
I think that's why they have to get Pereira into the mix.
Yeah.
They need something to get them going.
I have to think 2 weeks with the club now, he's assimilated, he's ready to go. Unless there's something nagging that we don't know about.
I haven't heard anything like that.
You got to take the wrench and take the training wheels off at some point.
This is why you sign a player like that. And I think it was a great signing for Orlando, a player they got on a free, a player with a lot of experience, a player who should be able to help them in a big way, and that needs to start tonight.
Right.
You know, when you look at players kind of writing themselves into a club's history, he plays his first match in front of his new fans and has a big performance tonight. Well, not quite build the statue, but...
No, but it would...
It's big.
It would vault him to legendary status because let's face it, they really haven't had any players who have come up big in this series. They've had a lot of players with memorable things for the wrong reasons, a.k.a. Will Johnson, a.k.a. Joe Bendick. They haven't had really anyone in club history, maybe outside of the 3-3 draw, that match, anyone that's really risen to the occasion. So from that standpoint, yeah. Now, I don't know if that's something that Pereira is thinking about. I don't really even know.
He needs to. But that's the thing, is he needs to. And I think they need to ask him to be that guy.
Who's going to counsel him on just what this, I'll say it, rivalry means to his club? I mean, is there someone in that dressing room that's providing counsel, or do you think it's just something he knows?
I think if anybody's doing that, it's a player like Christian Higuita, who's been here from day one. And, Atlanta hasn't been around as long as Orlando has, but Higuita knows what not just the Atlanta series means, but Orlando getting to the playoffs means. He's, I believe, the last guy here from year one. You've got others, like Will Johnson's a leader in this team, and he'll definitely have a word. And I think Nani, even though he's new this year, he's went through a couple of these now. And I think the biggest thing for Orlando, that they bring in Nani for partially this reason, they go get a player like Pereira for this reason. They have to show more composure in big moments. And we saw that firsthand last year. The first game down here was one of the most epic meltdowns of a professional sports team that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I've just never seen a team get in their own heads and fall apart before the first kick. And then it got worse. You go get Nani and Pereira, two guys who have been there, done that, to not have that ever happen again. This is where it has to start for them. They have to have a professional performance tonight. This is their best shot to be in the postseason probably since year one.
Yep.
You know,
They had it. They had the construction of a team that could have done it last year.
On paper.
On paper, and they massively underperformed.
I'd love to hear the 30 for 30 on 2018 Orlando City because, I mean, Justin Merrim, great interview with Felipe Cardenas over at The Athletic, and he won't get into it too much, but I always go back to Merrim saying last year that, you know, look, my role was very defined in Columbus. I knew exactly what the team wanted from me, and here that's not the case. And this was under Jason Kreis, who's been a very good manager in this league, although the last couple stops have been a little worrisome. Jason Kreis was never somebody known for, you know, being unorganized. So what happened? That's the question. And Merrim made a good point in the interview with The Athletic is you see all these players come to Orlando and play worse than they did before. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just him. Mm-hmm. Dwyer's went downhill. Klestion, and you could say age factors into it with Sasha Klestion, but Klestion hasn't been the same as he was with the Red Bulls. Go down the list. They're all there. So why? This feels like a new Orlando City is dawning. I don't know if it's dawned yet. And that's what tonight's performance should go a long way to show that.
And you hope it doesn't. But
they can wait one more week to dawn.
But it might.
It might.
And what I really want to drill down right now, even ahead of this match, is if it does, it's not the end of the world. The page will be turned very, very quickly to Tuesday night, one way or the other.
Yep.
But again, by getting 3 points at Portland, you've given yourself a little bit of wiggle room where if something doesn't go well tonight, it's not the end of the world. We will see. I think it's going to be a great, very emotional, intense match. Atlanta United finding that what did Paul Sherwin, the old cycling, the late Tour de France commentator, called it the suitcase of courage.
Oh, that's good.
Let's see what's in the suitcase of courage tonight for Atlanta United, because they had to empty that suitcase a little bit Sunday night in Portland. Were they able to replenish it? I think they're at a really good spot right now. I don't think they're overthinking things anymore. They're playing free. Looks like they're having fun. They're embracing these challenges. They're embracing the opportunity to play in an atmosphere like this. It's a stadium that gets your attention when you walk in. Atlanta United's risen to that challenge recently. On the whole of the year, they have not. So the recent sample size has been good. The full year sample size has not been good. I think it's maybe a little bit important for Atlanta United to prove a point. I look at it this way, Jason, because you got 3 in Portland. If you get 3 out of the next 2 league matches, if you get 3 tonight or 1 tonight and 3 in Philly or just 3 in Philly, I think you've done pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the things that do make this one maybe just a little more important are NYC's win on Wednesday and Philadelphia getting a Wayne Rooney-less DC coming in.
Come on up. Yeah. The Atlanta United Digital and Comms team is here. They're going to crash the final minute of soccer down here. Come on by. We're almost out of time anyway. So we have Ryan Katniss and Mikey Alfano. And Chris Ramondi is on the road trip tonight. Woo-hoo! And Justin is here. So
everybody will be happy to hear it.
Everyone will be really happy to hear that. That's right. This is a home game for Mikey.
That's right.
Saw him check in last night. Had family here, and I won't give the location of where we are.
No.
I don't want any fire alarms pulled or anything like that.
They were still wearing their Atlanta United shirts.
I would hope they would. You know,
we're in good shape.
You guys excited for tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ready for the Unified game, too.
Yes, and they're going to kick off at, what, 3 o'clock? 3:40. Yep. All right. So.
And people can watch?
I think we're still figuring that portion out.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Facebook Live?
We'll figure that
out.
There'll
be coverage.
Yeah.
There'll be coverage. But
I'm going to definitely be covering it. We'll have a recap video out later.
Awesome. In fact, when we sign off, I want to bring up an idea for that.
Sure.
So are we done?
We're done.
All right. Enjoy the match.
Thanks, y'all.